damp my nature.
As a matter of interest, how do you retain, how do you, in a way, manage to portray 25 or 30 characters on stage every night in terms of voices and mannerisms?
I suppose it's visual, really. One has a picture of the character in one's mind very much, and you just have to engage with it very, very strongly, and then you hope that your body will change and your voice will change according to that picture that you get in your mind.
Great challenge, though.
It is, and it's a great thrill, too, and sometimes I play 3 or 4 people talking to each other, and that's... I don't know what kind of acting that is.
It's known as one of great memory. Now, I've got so many things I want to talk to you about because yours is a very active life these days. I just want to briefly touch on 4 Weddings and a Funeral because that was such a surprise hit. Has that given you a global acceptance, really?
Well, global recognition, certainly. People recognize me in the most unexpected places. In the streets of Bangkok, I was stopped by people asking for autographs. Especially it helps if I'm wearing a beard at the time.
Yes.
And they're all rather astounded that I'm not as fat as I was in the film, and rather shocked when I explained that was padding. But the thing about the film, which was so remarkable, was how well loved it was. It wasn't just successful, it wasn't just... But it clearly touched people very much indeed at many levels. And the fact that I was the character who died and who provoked that extraordinary oration that John Hannah delivered so beautifully, perhaps gave people a certain affection for the character. And that's a very, very delightful thing, that people accost you with warmth and friendship.
Were you all very surprised yourselves that particularly the Americans took to it so quickly?
No.
No,
not in the least. It was just a brilliant script. I mean, I've had about 5 or 6 in my career, out of, you know, I've probably made about 30 films, and 6 of them were absolutely extraordinary scripts. Shakespeare in Love was another one. And there was no question in my mind that the English would adore it, and that almost certainly the Americans would. But the fact that, as I say, in Bangkok they loved it, in Tahiti they loved it, in Reykjavik it was sold out. You know, those were extraordinary things.
Now we move on to the book, which is also the subject of a screenplay that you're writing at the moment. The legendary Peggy Ramsey, play agent, as she was referred to, but she was legendary, wasn't she?
She was a force of nature, really, Peggy, and a force for enormous good in the British theatre. And therefore, a lot of her writers, who later became screenwriters and so on, have passed very much into the mainstream. And she was unique in the sense that she was the creative conscience of her writers, and she spurred them on to greater and greater heights. And she was absolutely unrelenting with them. She wouldn't let them get away with anything. Now, I wasn't one of her writers, although in fact, I did write books, and she was the agent for them, but we didn't have that sort of relationship. Ours was a very intensely emotional and personal.
Yes, it says on the front cover, actually. I should say, actually, it's called Love is Where It Falls, and there's a passionate friendship. Yeah. So how passionate? Because you've never been shy of talking about your homosexuality. So how passionate was this friendship?
It had all the passion of a love affair, and one of the reasons I wanted to write the book was to say that love comes in all sorts of different forms, and this was between a 70-year-old woman and a 30-year-old gay man, and it was in everything except the rather technical detail of physical consummation a love affair.
Would she have liked it to have been a true love affair?
Yes, she would have done.
She would have done.
I suspect she would. In fact, I know she would. But it wasn't possible, and we decided, well, that's not going to stop us from loving each other. And it was quite stormy and turbulent. Every relationship with Peggy was. Also, there was a certain amount of frustration inherent in it. And I was having a relationship with a young man at the time as well, which was very intense. So it was a very turbulent time for me altogether. And that's really what the book is all about, is that sort of emotional turbulence. But Peggy insisted on emotional commitment, emotional honesty, of going the whole hog. And her great phrase was, do whatever you must do in life, but always pick up the bill afterwards. So one, you know, learned to live fully. She gave one the courage to do that.
And you wrote, for a period of time, you wrote to each other every day, practically?
Well, like Victorians. We wrote to each other sometimes 3 or 4 times a day. We lived quite near each other, and so we just drop off a letter, you know, and I never cared very much for the telephone as a means of communication, nor did she. So we'd do this with the letters, and it was as if we were never out of contact with each other.
And do the letters form the basis?
They were the starting point for it, most certainly, yes.
Well, fascinating. Look forward to the movie. Yes. Has it already been accepted?
I'm on the 2.5 draft.
Fantastic. Well, as I say, I hope you'll come back and see us again, because you always have a million things that you're doing at the moment. Simon Callow, thank you very much, and good luck with the tour. This is Bromley representing Bromley this week. Yes, I just want to say, by the way, that the show about Dickens is in Bromley this week, and then next week going on to...
It's in Oxford.
Oxford next week. And if you want to know any more details, just get in touch with us on 5 Text. Now, before the break, we were talking about how the frosty relationship between Camilla Parker Bowles and the royal family appears to have thawed somewhat following her meeting with the Queen over the weekend. We asked you to ring in with what you feel is the effect and what the effect will be on the monarchy and whether or not you think that the royal family should embrace Prince Charles's long-time love. Well, back now to take your calls. Will you welcome once again James Whittaker.